Hi there, it's Martin here with a video in which I'll share with you 5 ways that you can add value to your property. Now, because I always speak about refurbishment and conversion, this video is about ways of adding value to property by using conversion and refurbishment methods. And I'm going to set these out in a kind of rank order, which is starting from the easiest and cheapest through to the more expensive and more complex. So the first way that you can add value to a property is just to reconfigure what you've already got. Could you move some walls around to create an additional bedroom? Could you build an ensuite in the corner of a bedroom to just raise the quality of that property? Could you perhaps take down a wall between a kitchen and a living room to open that up into a much more usable space? So relatively low budget, relatively easy work to do, relatively quick fix to add some value. So that's option number 1. Option number 2, I generally feel, is actually converting a garage. If you've got an integral garage in a property, then converting that garage is generally relatively easy. You may well have to create a doorway through, or maybe move an existing doorway. You're going to have to insulate that garage, take out the front door, of course, and you can convert that into typically a nice sized living room or a nice sized bedroom, even with an ensuite. So a little bit more complex, a little bit more expensive, but still relatively easy to do. Number 3 would be to actually build an extension onto the existing property. A single room extension, relatively easy to build, a little bit more expensive typically than converting a garage, but you generally get a nice room there, or you can extend an existing room to make it a more usable space, maybe open up the kitchen or something like that. Relatively easy to do. Relatively quick to do, and fairly risk-free in doing that. So that's number 3. Number 4, I think you could consider a loft conversion. Now, loft conversions can be quite straightforward, but in turn they can be a little bit more complex. There can be some challenges with some properties with regard to the construction of the existing roof. In doing loft conversions, you may well be forced to do some fire upgrades throughout the remainder of the property, particularly if you've got an HMO. You often need to employ structural engineers, and it can just generally be a little bit more complex than an extension. Cost-wise, maybe about the same as an extension, depends on the size of both, of course, but just a little bit more complex. So that's why that comes in at number 4. And then number 5 is a basement or cellar conversion. A lot more risk attached to this. Often we've got to worry about damp proofing, and in some cases even keeping water out. We've sometimes got to dig down the floor, which means we've got to worry about underpinning, and all the ramifications of that. Sometimes getting down into that basement can mean that the staircase needs to be modified, and ultimately the space that we create down there is never as nice as rooms elsewhere in the house. And whilst the cost of converting a basement is not that much, not dissimilar from an extension and a loft conversion, I think the value of the space you create from a basement is nowhere near as nice as the value that you would create elsewhere. So that's my 5 ways of adding value to property, loosely in the order that I would tend to look at doing them for myself, or would recommend to any property investor, from an easy to a more complex, and from a quick win value add to a more complex and perhaps not quite such a good value add. So do please post below if there's anything in there that you've learned. If you've got any feedback on anything that I've said in this video, I'd love to speak to you. Otherwise, like and share this video, and I look forward to catching up with you on another one very soon.